Hello everyone, and welcome to PCI Webinars. Today's webinar, Overcoming the Challenges of Working at Home for the Employee and the Manager. Our speakers today are MJ Callaway and Andrew Sanderbeck. Let me just tell you a little bit about them. MJ is a former corporate sales trainer and an award-winning woman sales executive that ranked #1 nationally. MJ knows firsthand the disruptions professionals, managers, and executive teams handle daily, yet they still need to be positive and productive. MJ has earned professional member designation from the National Speakers Association, and she's the current co-president of NSA Pittsburgh. Andrew Sanderbeck, who resides in lovely North Carolina, has been developing and conducting training programs for libraries and library organizations for more than 15 years. He has presented web-based, online, and face-to-face sessions on management and leadership, customer service, and communication skills in the U.S. and numerous countries around the world. He is a chairman of the board of the Haywood County Public Library Board and a monthly donor to Every Library, which advocates for libraries and librarians everywhere that support is needed. Starting off the presentation today will be MJ Callaway. Go ahead, MJ.
Let's go ahead and move into. So welcome to Working Remotely, how to stay positive and productive. I will be sharing the first half of the program, and then we will bring in Andrew, and the two of us will be going back and forth and giving you the best information we can so that you can either help yourself or you can help your staff members. So let's move in here. The working from home now is your new normal. And what's crazy is one day you were in the library and the next day you're out. So your home isn't set up for a 40-hour work week unless you're already a remote worker. That's the biggest challenge. Now, I do realize some of the supervisors and managers might still be in the building. So as we're going through today, think about the tips that I'm sharing with those who are working from home, how you as a supervisor or manager can help your team to be better prepared at home. So let's move into the 3 snafus that happen when you're working from home. First, as I had mentioned, you're in one day and you're out the next. So you didn't have the opportunity to create a plan to work from home. You're scrambling and haven't had an opportunity to either set boundaries with family, to set up roles, or to set up an office. You could be working from the kitchen table. The second thing is no energy. And what I mean by that isn't so much your own energy, is the space you are in. The space you're using, whether it's a kitchen table or you're working from the sofa or corner of the bedroom, that space has not been set up to have the best energy supply for you. And then last one is mute and video. So not having the habit of putting yourself on mute or putting yourself or taking off the video button when you're in a virtual meeting. One of the things that recently happened is you probably heard about Senator Duckworth, who was telling her daughter about go to the potty and wash your hands. And she was sharing that with the whole Democratic Party. Be aware of the mute button and the video button. You would be surprised how many professionals that work from home that forget that and take their laptop into places they shouldn't, such as the bathroom. So be aware of that as you're moving forward and doing more virtual programs. We want to talk today about the 5 must-haves, and we'll cover space, boundaries, routine, connection, and self-care we'll finish with, because self-care is just as important as everything else in those categories. So the first one here, talking about how you can create a positive space. Now, looking at this, looking at a crowded desk, overcrowded desk, that is not going to be a good place for energy. So what can you do with what you have. And the key here is how can you adapt and how can you improvise with what you have? So the first part we want to talk about, and these are actually suggestions from an interior designer who works in a lot of office spaces. So we want to set you up for success for your work at home success. Research shows that your workspace impacts your health, your satisfaction, your well-being, and your productivity. And it is in that order. So when you have more energy in your space, you actually will be more energized. So for that first photo there, think about wherever you are working, that niche. Most people don't have a home office because they're not working every day remotely. One of the things that I have learned in the last 15 years of working from home is to have specific things that make me more energized. So natural lighting, my desk is actually set near a window. Natural lighting actually works in our favor. Having a plant there, and I'll talk a little bit more about a plant, but that natural lighting is key. If you don't have natural lighting, especially if you're working in a corner, you might even be working in a basement or a garage. I know Ann's dad, when he had a business, he had worked in the basement. Have as much lighting as possible. Bright lights actually make us happier. So if you need to pull lamps or lighting from other rooms, do so during your work at home time. Plants are a great thing to incorporate. And here's the reason. Plants actually add up to 15% boost in productivity. So think about that. You can boost your productivity without adding extra time to your day. So that's a very good thing. For that left photo again, I just want to point out another thing. This is just a little tip. Do you have a document easel? If you don't have a document easel, you can easily create one by using an 8x10 picture frame, one that has a easel on the back of it, and then leaning your documents up against it, and then put something such as a phone, or if you're using a white-off board, an eraser next to it so it doesn't tumble over. The reason for that is this is also good for your energy and your health. That eliminates you looking down all the time at documents, which causes a strain on your neck, which causes more it causes more what they call eye hunch or text neck. And that is where research shows that your neck goes down, your body ends up rolling in, and you actually have the same body language as someone who's been diagnosed as clinically depressed. So keep your neck up as much as you can. Now, the last photo is a diffuser. Now, if you have a diffuser, move it into your workspace. Scents to include in there are lemon, orange, cinnamon, and peppermint. These scents are known for energizing the space. Now, if you do have a pet, I have heard that they are not good for dogs because of the toxicity in them. So think about a candle. What candle do you have that has a scent that can bring some more energy into the room, that brings that aroma into the room? Now, before I move on to organization, I do want to share one last tip about plants. Plants are green. Green is the most livable color. It's known as the color for resilience, peace, and also productivity. If you don't have any plants that you can bring into your workspace, print out some pictures of nature and post that in that space, and that will give you that same advantage, that same benefit as having a real live plant. Okay, so let's move on to organization. So organization, whatever you can do to keep off your desk and to keep off the floor, you want to do so. What can you put on the walls, or what can you put into a container? Now, these are two inexpensive wall organizers. If you have a little bit of extra money and it's something that you could use maybe later on in the kitchen or for your kids, go ahead and do so. If you don't, we'll talk about some ways that you can have some substitutions. The key here is to keep everything contained, especially if you're working at home and you have a family, you have kids, you have a spouse. You want to keep everything out of their hands. So looking at some ways to make it work, look at the basket there. You want to take out the shoes, get the shoes out of there. You probably have heard about business in a box. Think about office in a basket. The key is to have it contained. At the end of the day, when you shut down your laptop, you can put everything in that basket and you can move it into a room, an area that your family cannot touch. The same goes for the shoe boxes there. You need office supplies. The same office supplies that you would have in your office at the library, you need at home. Unfortunately, you're now sharing with other people in the family. Put those into some type of a container, some type of a box, the ones that you know you'll need. The last thing you want to do is get frustrated going through the house looking for things you need, paper clips or stapler or markers. So put those in a box, and again, put those in an area at the end of the day where others can't reach. Make those hands off. Now, up in the upper left-hand corner, going old school here, flip chart paper. It's a great way to improvise when you don't have a wipe-off board, that smart board that you normally have in your workplace. And if you don't have flip chart paper, think about using wrapper paper or brown paper bags as a substitute. You'll also see there next to that to-do list is a calendar that does have beautiful scenes there, just bringing in that active nature there. And the last one, this one I actually did, I live in Pennsylvania and we have Carnegie libraries. So a lot of our teen spaces use these they're over-the-door shoe organizers. They use them to hold office supplies. So if you have one of those that you can use, pull it into that space. So whatever you can do, think, adapt, and improvise, but most of all, think off the desk, off the floor, out of the kids' hands. So moving into boundaries. Boundaries are key to a successful work at home time frame. And we need boundaries with ourselves as well as family members, extended family, relatives, co-workers, and also friends. This was my biggest adjustment and something that I had to make a discipline when I first became a work at home business. You would be surprised how many people think when you work from home, you're available all the time. Well, you're still working. They don't get that you're still working 8 to 5 or 8 to 4 or 7 to 3. And those are your work hours. So we need to create roles. That's our first action under boundaries. Is to create roles. You want to have the roles of your work day. So what are your hours that you will be working? What are your break times? What's lunchtime? When that door, so going with the rules, when that door closes, if you're in a bedroom or some type of family room that you can close a door, when that door closes, you're at work. So with it, you also need to create family roles. And if you have kids who are now working or have school homeschooling, you now have to create school rules for them too. So a couple of ideas with that is once that door is closed, it's work time. And if you don't have a door, create a boundary line. So use tape. use scarves. Let the kids create a line with blocks or artwork. Make them part of creating these roles. Bring your family into it. Once you bring them into it, it's easier for them to understand mommy or daddy's at work right now. Also, when you create that line, it is a better line for you. You change your mindset. Post the hours. You can have the kids help you create a sign with hours. If your kids are too little that they can't tell time, show a visual or create timers, whether on your smart device or if you have Alexa, create it through there. So making those lines there. Now, for you, one of the things you have to think about is once you cross that line, it's work time. And sometimes it's hard to put that into perspective. A colleague of mine, he had to walk out the door, around his house, into the front door to go to his office space. That he needed that adjustment there, that transition. So think about what transition you need to go from home to work. The next one is resist the rescue. Having those rules in place also create, you can only interrupt or I will only rescue you under these circumstances. So it needs to be some type of an emergency. And this goes for, as I had mentioned, internal, external family, the coworkers, colleagues, and friends, anybody who up until now, think about who's been interrupting your day. We're enabling them to interrupt our day. So we have to resist rescuing them. So unless your kids are in the dryer and stuck and can't get out, we need to resist the rescue. And I'm going to give you a short example of someone. A colleague called me yesterday, and she was working on a project with another person. And she completed her half of the program, and the other person did not. His part was a PowerPoint presentation, which is not in her wheelhouse. He sent her an email and asked her if she could finish it because he was not in a place to do so. And she called and she said, MJ, I feel like he's picking and choosing. That's not something I do. I said to her, are you rescuing him? And she thought about it and she said, yes, because he didn't give her a reason why she needed to finish the project for him. So she was really, really busy. She did send that to him, and he came out with, he just really didn't feel like doing it. So fortunately, she did resist that rescue. So keep that in mind. And that's for managers and also for staff members. Think about it. So we also need to create roles for ourselves when it comes to social media. If social media is part of your task, your daily task or your weekly task, set a time limit. When you're at home, you get more relaxed when it comes to social media. I know. And then you can get into this black tunnel that you end up finding out you go from one site to another site. Next thing you know, 2 hours have slipped by. So use a timer, use your smartphone, use Alexa to set those timers for yourself. Decide ahead of time before you get on social media how much time you're giving it. So moving into routines. Routines are crucial to working at home. Routines, systems, disciplines, whatever you want to call it. We need to have those in place in order to, one, not get frustrated because we're not accomplishing what we need to do. Two, we're not being as productive because home distractions we don't have home distractions when we're in the workplace. So they're all over the place when we work at home. So once you set those hours, they have to become regular hours. Professionals and entrepreneurs and anybody who has worked remotely has learned this lesson because your home spills into your workplace. and your workplace spills into your home life. So once you do that, it's a routine for everybody. If we don't create a routine, then our family never adjusts to our work hours, and neither do we, because our brain is saying, oh my goodness, what are you doing to me? Like we can't train our brain when we're not applying those set regular hours. So we need that shift. So the other thing is to set up your day according to when you work best. If you have more mental and physical energy in the morning, set your projects that require more focus and stamina according to those tasks. Pay attention to how you feel and assign your task accordingly. And then also pay attention to when your concentration is slipping. Mark that time frame, and during that time frame, schedule the task or the phone calls that are easier for you to do and don't require as much mental focus. We have a lot of ebb and flow in our energy, so use that ebb and flow in your work day. So productivity. So before we move into talking with Andrew here, the you do need to set up breaks. So I had mentioned already about your hours. You have to have breaks in your day. So those breaks are going to help you refocus. It's also going to help you take the eye strain away. So it gives your eyes a break as well as your mental fitness. And then that high energy down there, that's going with, as I had mentioned, schedule those tasks according to what is high energy time for you. So mark that time frame. Use Alexa or any smart device, any technology you have. So use to set timers. I work 50-minute increments. So I have Alexa to go off at 50 minutes to the hour. And I say, Alexa, play Irish music in 50 minutes. So when I know that Irish music is coming, I know I have a break. Also, if you do listen to music during the day, your music match your task. If you're brainstorming, you have to focus on something. Use smooth jazz. Now, if you're doing something that is, you want to do something fast, you're doing a competition with yourself, then you want to have more upbeat music. And that's when I would pull in Irish music, because I don't know any of the words, and it is upbeat music for me. So over here, think about a race car driver. So before that race car driver ever gets to that track, that race car driver's pit crew is setting up that car to be the best it can be once it hit the track. So think about setting up your day the night before for the next day. Start smart by setting up that night. Figure out what is on your schedule. Get your reports or get whatever your list is together, so that when you get in that seat at 8 o'clock in the morning, you are ready to go and you don't have to think about what is on your day to-do list. So before we move to Andrew, I just wanted to say, think about this quote. It's one we've heard a number of times, and one that I realize I do have a typo in, so ignore that. But a body in motion stays in motion. But think about this from your workflow. When you're in the flow of work, that flow continues and it builds and it gets better. And that's the flow we want to be in. So we're going to move it over to Andrew, and he's going to talk about what managers can do to help their employees. Take it away, Andrew.
MJ, before you go, we did have a question for your part of the presentation there on, do you have a good schedule or planner or daily timeline that you would suggest? And that question came in before you started talking about the energy. So any thoughts there?
Absolutely. So I do use my Google Calendar, and I put everything in my Google Calendar. I put from my meetings, webinars, and I also put my time blocks of when I'm going to work on specific projects. So I know, and I do this at the beginning of the month, at the beginning of the week also, and I review it for the next day. But so I'll use this webinar as an example. So Andrew needed it a week ahead of time. This is one that came up quicker. Usually I need to give my slides and my resources, which you can download. Don't forget to do that. I have to give those 2 weeks ahead of time. Well, I block time on my calendar the week before so that I can do those slides. I can do the first draft of them midweek. I can look them over and then I can send them. So I use my Google Calendar to mark those in. Now, at the beginning of the week, and I actually do it on Sunday night, what all do I need to accomplish for that week that is not on my schedule? And then I write that down on my list and I assign those days of the week according to what I have open time blocks. So I know from that standpoint what all I need to accomplish that week. And then the night before, I go in and I adjust whatever I can. So that's one calendar I need. I use flip chart paper. That flip chart paper is that's actually one of mine I showed you. That's the major projects that I have going on and all of the tasks under them that need to be accomplished. So I have that in my face all the time, and I need it in my face all the time because if not, I can get easily distracted. So that's another one. I also have a hard copy calendar that's all of my speaking and training engagements. So I can see that at a glance. Those are, I'll just say, those are commitments that I can't change. Whereas my task in my iCalendar or my Google Calendar, I can change some of those. So I hope that helps. If you wanted to reach out to me, Andrew, is it okay if I give my email?
Sure.
Okay, it's mj@mjcallaway.com. I would be happy to answer any questions for you, any additional questions. Okay,
All right,
Andrew?
thanks, MJ. Yep, let me jump in on managers here. So for us, because that would include me, that are managing people remotely, I want to go over some different things here to help you, but also to help them because they're dealing with a lot of change. And some of the big things I hear are the huge change in structure that they're dealing with and having trouble with, as well as there's just not anybody next to me in the room anymore. And then we can get into distractions and interruptions. I've talked with folks who are not only having kids at home, but also elderly parents. And so there's a lot more going on to distract people from getting their work done. And so I think in the role of a manager or supervisor, the way that we can really help here is let's take a look at some of these bullet points. Number one to me is let's start off with our expectations clear. And whenever I have had and currently have a performance issue with someone, the first question I ask myself is, are the expectations clear? And if the expectations are clear, then I can move on to, okay, is this a training issue? Is it something they just don't want to do? And I've kind of got a checklist that I run through. But for us here, I think it's even more important now with people working remotely, and and we're in charge, that we need to make sure that these expectations are clear. So I just want to give you kind of a list here of things to think about with regards to expectations. Number one, and this sounds so obvious, surprised when it's not, you have to be clear on what the expectations are. If you can't do that, then there's no way to build mutually clear expectations with the people that you are supervising or managing. I'm a big fan of having things in writing, especially with expectations. and maybe I fall into one of those people of, I'll know it when I see it. Well, having me, it's in an email or whatever form it is that I'm getting it is very helpful for me. So I would make sure that your expectations are clear. I recommend in writing whenever possible. But once again, if you're not clear, there's no way in the world that I can be clear as a staff member. Number two, I look at here in really looking at, does everything need expectations made clear? Now, that's probably an interesting thought about just what I said in the first one. But what I want you to think about is, where are the gaps right now in performance? Where are the gaps of where things aren't getting done that you want to get done? And so instead of going back and redefining every expectation, why don't we start at where the issues are? So where are things not getting done either for your group as individuals or for your group as a team? So where is the work output less than ideal? Where do you think communication gaps are happening? And let's start there. And let's make sure that we're making note of those gaps and then taking action on what those gaps are. I think it's critical also that we let people know why. And ever since I saw Simon Sinek's video on how great leaders inspire, was a TED Talk, really got me thinking more and more about, it's really true that people are much more motivated by why than they are by what or how. So yes, I understand that we need to communicate what. Sometimes we're going to need to communicate how, but please make sure that you communicate why, because why gets the buy-in. And probably now more than ever, when I've got so many distractions going on and I've got all these interruptions and I'm trying to figure out structure and I'm trying to figure out how to stay focused, the why could be the glue to really help. What are you doing with online meetings right now? I just got a note from a colleague just before we came on the air with this webinar, and she was saying, Andrew, I have never had so many meetings in my life. And I'm thinking, boy, do I understand that. I have never been on so many video conference calls than I have been on in the last 2 weeks. Well, you know what's the new normal? So I really think that we need to look at, and please be careful of I'm a big fan that we can just really hurt relationships and hurt teams with too many meetings. So, be aware of that. But look at, how are we meeting to discuss the expectations? Is it something you can do on the phone? Is it going to be more of a group setting, a team setting, where I know a lot of people are using Zoom and a lot of people are doing different things like that? I saw that there was a question was brought in about sharing the link for the TED Talk, and we'll see what we can do on that. I think Ann is going to help us out with that. But the TED Talk program is called How Great Leaders Inspire, and it's Simon Sinek. Make sure that you write your own expectations down for yourself and your goals as well. And the reason I want you to do that is I believe that it'll actually help you get more clarity when you document your plan of action. And that way there will be less confusion later about the terms which you agreed on with yourself, but also with what you agreed on with others. And then the last point that I make here on this first one is gain agreement. Don't just assume that people agree. Remember in communication that there's a sender and there's a receiver, but the only true way the sender knows that the message was received is by feedback. So once you have documented those expectations and we've made sure that both parties have read them, then get the commitment, whether it's verbally, whether it's in writing, whatever that may be. But to me, one of the best things we can do to help folks that we are managing is to make sure that they understand the expectations. Then if we're having performance issues, then let's look at the gaps and then let's reassess those expectations and then see where we're going to go from there. If you have listened to some of my programs, you know that I am a huge fan of not babysitting people, and having had micromanaging managers and supervisors in the past, I just want to cringe every time I think about that. Yet we need to follow up. And so just some suggestions here. First of all, remember that every employee that you have is different. Some are going to need more hand holding than others, and some are going to struggle more than others right now with what's going on. I still believe that a great tool in effective management is making staff responsible for follow-up. I cannot emphasize enough, I believe that too many people chase communication with their staff. So let me give you some examples of things you could do. Communicate with them, for instance, that at the end of the day, I want you to send me a report of what you accomplished. Guess what? Now they're responsible. And to me, that's the whole clue and the whole thing. Make them responsible. Maybe you send out a communication that says, we'll meet online in the morning and we can go over any questions, concerns, or changes, 9 a.m. Boom. All right, so once again, look at ways that you can make them responsible for follow-up, not just you. This saves so much headache and so much time. And then decide together when check-ins are needed for the various tasks and projects that are going on. Please don't micromanage people. Please don't just show up virtually or on the phone. Well, what's going on with that? I would cringe if you did that to me. So instead, let's decide together when we'll set up times for check-ins and follow-up. I feel like you trust me much more. I feel like you are much more comfortable with the work that I'm doing. Speaking of trust, I'm going to challenge you guys right now to really think about, in the current times, what do people need? What do staff members need? And I'm looking at this through the lens of, I think they need you to coach them more than they need you to manage them. And what I mean by that is, I'd like to suggest that your communication is more about having them report to you what their challenges are. And you talking with them about what their solutions are, not yours. And also then looking at what is their commitment to action. So if they tell you that they're having trouble with a certain situation and that they think they've got the solution, that's great. But remember, actions talk, words are only words. So I want a commitment. All right, so when are you going to do this? When are you going to make this happen? And then, no doubt these are historic times and they're causing overwhelming change and uncertainty. And I imagine that you guys as well are faced with your own disruptions and uncertainties and interruptions. And I'm going to put trust back on you. I want you to trust yourself. I want you to trust that you can adapt and that you can be a quiet leader for your team members. And notice I said quiet. This is not a time to share your woe is me stories with staff. It's going to be your time to listen to staff. But they're going to follow your lead. So do your best to be quiet and confident in this incredible period of time we're living in right now. And with regards to flexibility here, I want you to tell your people that you expect them to do their best. And understand that their best, like your best and my best, are not going to be the same every day. There are some days I can tell you that my best is barely getting out of bed. That's just the truth and the reality for me. But what I'd love to see you do by being flexible is focus on building relationships. So focus on their needs and listen. And remember, even if their issue can't be resolved right now, maybe by you just listening could have been what they needed. And then finally, before I turn it back over to MJ, I want you to understand that the way things were aren't the way that they are. And I firmly believe they're not going to be the way that they're going to be. So now I think is the time for us with our flexibility to focus on empathy, look at kindness and compassion in what we're doing. All right, MJ, takes on must-have number 4.
All right, thank you so much, Andrew. And Ian, if you want to close out those questions, that would be awesome. So before we move on to connection, I want to add on to a comment that Andrew said about why. When you're creating your rules and your boundaries with family members and extended family and so forth, think as you're talking to them, give them the why that you need those boundaries. So thank you, Andrew, for bringing that up, because that why is so important for every part of working at home. So moving into connections here, the with working at home, even though I'm telling you to have boundaries with others, we still need that connection. We are human beings. And the one thing that I had found when I started working from home is I missed that interaction. So we do want to have interaction that is interaction outside of always talking about productivity. We need that interconnection that is human to human. So, how can we do that? So, a couple of ways that I have found that I have incorporated into my own work from home success model is I have a team huddle. So I have two different types of teams. So I have the team huddle that I would have with clients and staff. And then I have a team huddle with my subcontractors and my own team. So it's once a week so that we can get on the same track. It's to say hello. It's to say, this is what I'm looking to accomplish this week. And it's a huddle like the sports teams use. It's a gathering together to be under one mindset. And at the same time, it's a great way to connect and engage with others. And now with technology and with being at home, we have to think about the ways that we can do that. And there's a lot of different platforms that you can use. So the next thing that I found is I had missed that office connection, working on projects with other people. So I do it's a bi-weekly where I meet online with a couple of other colleagues. And it is 2 hours. At 8 o'clock, we get on, we share what's happening, what we want to work on at that during that session. And then we work for 50 minutes. We stop, we take a break, and then at the top of the hour, we share for 5 minutes if we had any struggles. If we had, hey, I want to brainstorm this with you. What are your thoughts? We work for the next 50 minutes, and then we wrap up the end of the 2 hours. So maybe that would work for you with someone in who now is working from home too, or maybe this will a department head or a supervisor or your manager. Maybe there's some way that you can make that work for you. The other thing is you'll see the track here, accountability partner. I have an accountability partner that I meet with by phone. Whenever we can, we meet in person for coffee, and it's only a 45-minute time frame, and we have to tell each other if we hit our goals. We actually rate ourselves on what we have hit, so we have an outline of what we should do for the next week too. So you don't have to be as structured as I am with mine, and I'll give you the reason why, going back to Andrew with why. The reason I am structured, I need these disciplines in place because I fall under, if anyone has followed the DISC profile, I am what's considered influential, the social butterfly. I love that social connection. So if I don't have these systems in place, I will do more socializing than work. So working according to what works best for you. So with that, I am going to, I wanted to share one more thing is, can you do a good news? We do Good News Friday with any of the people that I work with. Every Friday, we have a good news call. What was your good news for the week? Because it is so much fun to end the week with good news. And then you feel so much better about sharing and also going into your weekend. All right, and we'll go ahead into some strategy for managers. And this is you, Andrew.
MJ, I love Good News Friday. I think
Thank
everybody
you.
needs to steal that idea like now. What a cool idea.
We
Because,
need it.
because a lot of times we only hear the bad stuff. So, that's good for you guys. All right, strategies. Here we go. I think as managers, supervisors, we need to really grab the reality that people are having trouble with isolation and disconnection. And more reading that I'm doing, I'm seeing a lot more about isolation issues and what that is doing to motivation and different things like that. So kind of like MJ was talking about with the morning huddle, I have talked with different library directors and different folks in libraries that are having these morning huddles. They're having morning check-ins with their staff online to, first of all, kind of get everybody together in the morning, to still give it that workplace feel like they are there in person, and to kind of get everybody started off on a good note. So I think something like that could help them overcome feelings of isolation and disconnection. I think it's really important that some type of consistent schedule for communication is made out, whether it's for one-on-one communication, whether it's a project, or whether it's just the staff in general. And I'd like you to start asking the question to your staff of where are the disconnects in information and communication happening or even continuing. So what information are they or even you receiving that's confusing, it's inconsistent, or is changed? I know early on in this process, I was getting a lot of feedback from libraries that one of the big concerns was information was changing so quickly and people were very confused about, well, what is it now? Because it changed from yesterday. So, what's what? So I would challenge you to put out that question, where the disconnect's happening, and then let's see how you can address those. The other thing here is I'm a big fan of asking my team members what's their preferred method of communication. Not everybody likes video calls. Not everybody likes the phone. If you're introverted, you probably hate the phone, but that's a different webinar. And anyway, I think it's important to ask what it is that they prefer. And my last strategy here, it's one that I've used for years, and I hope you'll consider it. It's called 5 minutes with Andrew. Now, it would obviously be 5 minutes with you, but the idea is to have a one-on-one with each of your staff members for 5 minutes each week. The idea here is not to dictate policy. It's not to talk about process. It's just to check in. It's just to say, how you doing? What's going on? You can share some different things that are going on with you. They can share things that are going on with them. And you know what? If they don't want to share, it's a 30-second with Andrew. Because I've had those sessions where they're like, ain't got anything. And you know what? That's okay, because you provided them the opportunity. And if they didn't have anything that time, that's okay. So give those a try. All right, MJ, take us on to must-have number 5.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Hang
Awesome
on
there.
1 second. Andrew, did you see the question? Let me just read it to you. What strategies would you recommend when you have staff working at home, but also staff that have been reassigned to other departments? Schedules are all over the place, and some staff don't have technology resources.
I have actually just had a conversation with the library on this earlier today. They're at an academic library, and their staff is being really just moved around all around campus as to where the departments are needed. And so people are filling in. And even in my own library system here in North Carolina, a lot of our staff are now answering the county helpline. So I think one of the things that you need to be clear of as the manager is what exactly are those staffing expectations outside of what's going on, and then ask for schedules. So what are the exact schedules that that people are having to deal with? And as far as if you don't have technology, I still believe you have a telephone. So don't let no technology be the excuse that we're not talking. But that's going on a lot of places. And Christy, I think it's a matter of find out exactly where they're being pulled in what directions, and get a schedule from them. Back to what I said earlier about, I don't believe it's my job to babysit. I believe it's their job to tell me what's going on. All right, MJ.
All right, great information there. And our phones do so much today. I mean, so much. So we can definitely do a lot with it. Okay, back to self-care here. Now that you're working from home and this is a new normal, and those who aren't working from home, you still have a new normal because now you are in a different position. You're trying to put all these strategies that Andrew was talking about or I'm talking about into place. And because it's a big change, change actually zaps our energy. So we need self-care now more than ever. So one of the first things that we need to think about is making that transition. We have the opportunity when we're actually in a building to transition from work to home. Now it's a 5-second commute and you don't have that mental transition. So we have to create that transition for ourselves. And how do you do it? You've got to come up with a way that works for you. The first thing is definitely shut down that laptop, turn it off, store it. Or if you're not working with a laptop, whatever documents you have, store them, put them in that basket, get them out of the way. We need to make that transition there. So other ways that you can do it is the transition to, if you have an exercise ball, go ahead and bounce on that for a few times to end your day, or do some stretch exercises so that you are moving your brain away from work and into the home life situation, so into your family life. Other ways, think about maybe you love tea. And if you do love tea, there are so many different brands, so many different types of teas, from peppermint tea, which is an energizer, and it also calms your nerves. There's also a tea called Calm. There's one called Positive Energy. And we can order those if we're not shopping, though you can also order those. So when they're inexpensive, you can get them for a couple of dollars and it will make a difference for you. If you do essential oils, take the peppermint one, put it in the palm of your hand, rub your palm of your hand together, causing friction, and then go ahead and inhale it. That is an energizer. The other thing that I want you to think about, if you have kids, you might even have these already, but is to pull out bubbles. End your day with bubbles. And I have this tip from a wellness coach, and here's what bubbles do for you. Number one, they take you back to childhood. They make you smile. I mean, and that's a good thing. Number two, because that engages your brain to that place in your mind that was a happy place. Number two, when you're trying to blow a bubble, your breathing actually slows down. So does your heart rate, because you need to slow down your breath in order to make a bubble. So that automatically calms the mind. And then the other thing is, it's just so much fun. Why not try it? So I am going to going to switch over here to Andrew for how can managers help in this segment?
All right, a couple thoughts here. Number one, I recommend that we talk with staff about their frustrations and their demotivators. Maybe they're frustrated because they're having to be homeschooling parents. I'm hearing that a lot. And once again, I think maybe you may not be able to offer the answer, but you can offer the opportunity to listen, and maybe there are some suggestions that you could come up with to help them. And there's different reasons here to be demotivated. It's a cute puppy, by the way. And certainly a lot of people, anxiety is high, the unknowns are high. And so once again, I would ask them about that. And once again, keeping those lines of communication open and then staying positive for them. Now, obviously that can be a challenge because you may not be having a great day, but remember, as I said earlier, they're going to follow your lead. So think about what image you're projecting. Think about what are the words that you're saying. And you know what? Maybe, depending how you're feeling, that it might be okay to say, you know what? We're not going to have that 4 o'clock call today. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Found a couple of really good quotes that I wanted to share with you before I turn it back to MJ. And I am not someone who advocates watching the news. As a matter of fact, I find it just, well, to be the opposite of positive. And so I was turned on to the website bbc.com probably about a month ago. And I actually am going there for not necessarily the news, but they have a lot of really great resources and different things. And I'm going to challenge you to take a look at, if you want to look at the news, you'll get to look at it from a perspective outside of our country, which I think can be helpful. But just check out all the different resources, once again, on bbc.com. So I was reading an article and they directed me to these two quotes. And the first one literally stopped me in the moment. And it was what I call my holy crap or my aha moment. So economist Paul Romer said in a previous crisis that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. I would like to see you start communicating that to your people. And instead of seeing, all of the things that are going on where our doors are not open and maybe we are having to work at home. I know some libraries are still having staff go in behind closed doors. What's the opportunity in this crisis? What is it that we can see from this? What is it that we can take away from it that's actually going to make us a better library today and when the doors do reopen? I have been sitting with this quote now for about 24 hours, and it's really energized me. I don't want to waste this moment, and I don't want to waste this opportunity because the opportunity is there. And then I love Einstein, and I think this is true for every day of life. Doesn't matter if we're in a crisis. But instead of striving to be successful, strive to be of value. And that's another thing for us to talk with our staff about. What is it that we do that is of value to each other? What is of value to our community? And what is of value to our library world? And those two things I hope will send you off. And I know MJ's got one more quote that I'm going to turn it over to her and wrap it up. But be that positive influence is my last message for you on this program. All right, MJ.
All right, thank you so much for that, Andrew. And one of my favorite people to quote is Jim Rome. So success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. So you heard a lot today between Andrew and myself. Choose one or two of those techniques, tips, tactics to implement. Not all of them. Start small. Because once we gain one discipline, we've gained expertise, knowledge in one discipline, then we can go ahead and do another one. And you can use discipline any which way you want. For me, systems is a discipline. So what is that? What does discipline mean to you? And also, what does success mean to you? I agree with you, Andrew. A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So what is your success at the end of this? What does your success look like? All right, Andrew, back to you.
All right, MJ, thanks. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and type them in. MJ and I are happy to stay on for a little bit here and go over any questions that you have. And
Andrew, could you say something about the handout, please, that it's there on the screen?
I will. Yep, thank you, Ann. So over on your right-hand side in your dashboard over there, you should see that there are two handouts for the program today. One is the PowerPoint slides. The other one is some of the resources that MJ has put together for you guys so that you can continue to learn when you leave here, but also you'll have different things that you can share with staff as well. I'm seeing a lot of thank yous coming in. No questions yet, but if you do have any questions, go ahead and put them in there. And Leanne, I don't know if you want to go ahead and start the wrap up.
Well, there is one good question. The bbc.com, was that the site you refer to, Andrew?
It was, yes. So bbc.com, BritishBroadcastingCompany.com.
Any other questions? I see a lot of thank yous in the box, and we appreciate that. And I'm just
I see a
running through
question,
them.
Leanne. Any advice, strategies for managers dealing with staff being furloughed or laid off? I see from Christy. Here's my, this is another conversation I had this morning. It's first of all, it's refreshing that you care, and I applaud that. And yet, I also know that at some point, I go back to the serenity prayer. And I go to, I need to look at what are the things that I can control and what are the things that I cannot. I will offer every support that I can to the folks that are being furloughed or that are being laid off, but I also have to at some point understand what's in my control and what's out of my control. And the manager that I was talking with this morning was very distraught with the furloughs that were going on, and she was really taking it very personally. And once again, I said, you know what, I appreciate that you care so much about your people, and I just want you to look at it, what it is that you can do, and realistically, what is it that you can't, and be the support that you can. But outside of that, those decisions were made for reasons that are outside of your control and what you can do. You got anything else on that, MJ?
Actually, I do, Andrew. Can I just say something that happened today?
Sure.
Just happened an hour ago.
Absolutely.
I volunteer at the hospital, and I was speaking with the nurse who is my boss. As a volunteer, she's my boss. And she was furloughed. They told her she had to be furloughed because of some health issues, but she couldn't figure out how to do it, whether to talk to HR, or they have an outside company that deals with people when they're having health issues. So my answer to that is look at the furlough situation from the perspective of the person who was furloughed. Do they have all the information that they need? How exactly did they receive the message that they were furloughed? What does that mean? Because you could say furlough in an organization could mean something else. It depends on who you are. So you really have to look at every question from the perspective of the employee rather than from your perspective. Saying to someone, oh, you're furloughed, that might not be enough. What does that mean? Do they still have their job? Do they still have their health care? Do other things still toll, like life insurance and things like that? So you really have to look at their perspective rather than just the message they're receiving from you or from the organization.
Good points, both of you. Thank you. So my add-in would be look at it from their perspective and what you can help them gain resources about. Do they need, as Ann said about insurance, but do they have a family? Are there going to be issues that way? What resources can you provide to help them through this time? What have you found?
I think because this is important, we should take another couple of questions. If you disagree, let me know if either of you have to be anywhere. Can you suggest webinars or resources for introverted staff working remotely?
Yeah, I'm just sending a private response to that. I can't tell you that I have anything spot on for working remotely, but I really believe that it would be worth looking at Susan Cain's TED Talk on the Quiet Revolution, which has to do with understanding more just what it's like to be introverted, or understanding the introverted staff member, the introverted person. that has been incredibly helpful for me. And so I recommend that. I like her book as well. I think one of the things to keep in mind with regards to someone who is more introverted is just understanding that they're not going to be the ones that are normally speaking out. And so it's just keeping in mind that they are the more quiet, they are the one that you're probably going to need to do more of starting the conversation, addressing the conversation with them. And you know, once again, not every introvert is the same, but that would be something that I would be concerned with. So start there. I know that, Ann, we've got at least one program in our archives having to do with the quiet approach to serving customers. I don't know if that would be helpful for a webinar that maybe both the manager and the staff member could view as well on that. Any other thoughts there, gang?
We actually have several that would apply. I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but there are quite a few.
Okay. The video conferencing will definitely throw them off. So with that, start a communication by telephone first so that you can pave the way to that next start. So start them out slowly. Also in the beginning, allow them to not be on camera. A lot of times managers would insist that everybody be on camera, on video. So with people that you know are introverts, enable them to come at their ease. So start them with, no, you don't have to be on video. You know, give them that opportunity, that flexibility. And as they get more comfortable being in a Zoom meeting, then they will adapt. But they really need to have that segue into the video conferencing world.
Okay, another question. Any advice on how staff can respectfully get access or get across to supervisors and management that they feel as if there is a lack of communication and support? I've noticed that most of the motivation and encouragement comes from peers.
Can I jump on this one, Andrew?
Yeah, please.
One of the things that I have suggested to managers is a Monday morning motivation, and they can do it 2 different ways, but it's every Monday morning. And it can be and it's similar to what your 5 minutes with Andrew is. However, it's 5 minutes. The manager is reaching out to motivate everybody else. That's one way to do it with a voice, you know, whether you're doing it through a conference call or whether you're doing it through video conferencing. The other way is for the manager to send out every Monday morning a positive quote to reach out to their staff.
I look at this,
say
MJ.
that some people like those and some people don't.
Yeah, I look at this, MJ, and it's funny. I've been torn in a couple of directions since I've read this. Number one is not a lot of managers are comfortable with what is being asked here. So, you know, I had a conversation earlier this week with a library organization, and one of the members of the organization who said, "We have heard nothing from our administration since the change happened." And I thought, that's a train wreck. And then I said, okay, has anyone reached out to them and not said, you know, why aren't you guys communicating with us? But instead took a more collaborative approach and said, you know, here's what we need, or can you help us address these issues? And so I'm wondering if that's the better approach with someone who's just not comfortable. You know, I think we all just think every manager and supervisor should just really, you know, be supportive, or that they should just grab the reins of communication. I don't know that, you know, That's not going to work. I know a lot of people that don't like giving people compliments. I know a lot of managers that just aren't comfortable. So I would suggest taking more of a, I don't know, indirect approach and saying, you know, here's how we feel. What can we do together in an approach to the manager? What do you guys think?
That's
Great
new to them
perspective.
too. That's the, you know, it's someone also further that said, my manager is not existent. He doesn't even send emails to us. You got to remember, this is a new world for them. They didn't sign up for this. None of us did, but those managers did not sign up to be remote managers.
So
No,
how
you're
can we
right.
help them? Right. How do we help them? Understanding that they didn't say, none of us signed up for this, but how do we help them?
Ask them polite questions.
Right.
Not, you know, don't pepper them with questions, but check in, you know, do your own check-ins and say, just checking in, making sure everything's okay and I'm doing what you want me to be doing. If not, let me know.
Yeah.
That's what the only thing I could think. MJ?
And the person who had asked a question, so maybe take the suggestion I said and ask your manager, hey, can we implement this? Or is it okay if I get this started? So then it pulls in both Anne's perspective and also Andrew's. So in addition to what they suggested, maybe that's how you can pull in what I suggested.
So you're saying show a little initiative and do things, push a little bit, push back a little bit and say, I'm going to do this. Is that okay?
Right. Make it initiative. Yes. A suggestion. So
Cool. Well, it is getting really late now and I don't want people to be here all night. So I just want to thank MJ and Andrew for putting this together. We had over 400 people here, so that's kind of interesting to put everything into perspective. And we appreciate you being here. We hope you learned a lot from it, and we'll see you again soon at another webinar. Stay safe, everyone, and have a good evening.